Today, I have with me Elizabeth Nesbit. She is president of Alta Inc. So, Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Really excited to have a chance to chat with you. But to get us started, do you want to tell us a little bit about Alta Inc?
Sure. We are a commercial printer in Gainesville, Florida, and the company was started by my parents in the 80s, and they started just out of our household garage. And today we have just around 30 employees. We're in one headquartered facility in Gainesville, and we've expanded over the years. We do toner, offset, inkjet printing. We have a wide format department, do a lot of mailing, and yeah, try to really go across the gamut of the different services that we can provide. So we consider ourselves a full service printer today.
A one stop shop.
Yep.
So, now your parents started it. So, how did you get involved?
My dad's father, so my grandfather, had been a printer in the Navy. And so that was actually a craft that he took with him when he left the military and had his own print shop in Philadelphia. So my dad grew up with that as their family business. And I'm not exactly sure what age he was helping and working in the shop. It was a lifelong experience for him. But we had moved to Florida because he was pursuing his master's degree in environmental engineering. And he was working in print shops at night to support our family and pay for himself getting through school. And at some point, I'm not sure that it was one moment, but he and my mom decided that they really liked Gainesville. They wanted to stay here. And at that point, they had four kids under the age of 6. We were all
Oh,
really close together. And so my dad had an old one color press shipped down from his dad's shop and had a hand pump like guillotine cutter. And I have super early memories of watching him do all of the processes out of the garage. And my mom was initially just helping him with one or two deliveries during the week. And she would help out with doing estimates or ordering paper, the billing, things like that. And then over time, as the business grew, they were really like dynamic duo. She was definitely at first running all of the front of house stuff, but then later on became the overall operations manager. So at some point, I think at our largest team size, early 2000s, we were about 50 people. And then we had economic downturn and had to do a lot of downsizing at that point. I know that there were pretty serious concerns about whether or not the business would survive. And at that point, growing up, even in middle school and high school, I would come in and work. I had different positions. I worked in the bindery and I worked in estimating and I worked as a customer service rep and a project manager. But I was never seriously intent on staying involved in the business. I was really interested in what felt at the time to be more like community building. I co-chaired and ran a cooperative grocery store for local food. And at that point had my 2 kids. So I was just a young mom with the same entrepreneurial spirit as my mom and dad was trying to do my own thing. And then I got really sick and I went through this pretty long period. It was basically from like 2011 to 2015 was just critically ill and was in and out of the hospital and had basically uprooted my whole life. I had to move back home with my parents because I needed
oh,
help taking care of my kids and couldn't work.
crazy. Sorry.
Yeah, it was extremely difficult, but I think as I've heard from like many other people who, whether it's illness or something else that kind of like pops up and takes you what feels like off course, it was in my recovery from that illness. I was finally starting to just feel a little bit better, but I didn't feel confident that I could just go out and put myself on a schedule and get a job, a normal
Mhm.
job. My dad was like, "You're already familiar with, you know how to invoice, you know how to do this, you know how to do that. Like, why don't you come in and do some administrative stuff? Help me at the office." And that way it wasn't that I needed to be here 9 to 5. And so at that point, I really just felt like that was an advantage of having a family owned business that he was even able to offer that to me. I really felt
Mhm.
like favor.
And it was something to get you through until you were back on your feet fully.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and in that process, like I was here at the office more regularly and having, again, this was a second home for me and just seeing ways that it was running differently than I had remembered in the past and just starting to get more curious and more engaged about the business itself. I just unintentionally found myself like really wanting to just be more and more involved. I feel like it had something to do with getting better. I had something to focus my energy on and be engaged with. And yeah, since about 2015, it probably took a couple of years to where I was like every day, full time, developing my own role and figuring out what that was. And I think it was really great timing for my dad. My mom had already retired. She
Mhm.
actually retired when I was sick because
She
she
was helping.
realized like I can't full
Yeah.
time run the business and take care of you. She had already retired, and then my dad started talking about retirement, and he's now fully retired as well. So I think that they didn't really have a specific exit plan, and I think this has worked out really well for all of us.
It sounds like it has. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I'm sad that you had to go through that really hard time, but it sounds like it also brought you back to something that maybe was a love that you had before.
yeah. I definitely feel that way, and it's not just specifically about printing. I feel like I have had that. I am a writer. I love books. I love the printed page. So that's like a side passion because that's not really like the bulk of what we print at
Mhm.
Alta. But yeah, I think having the really personal history of being in the shop and knowing what that feels like to be around printing and printers. And then also just knowing that my mom and dad began this company that supported my family and my siblings as we were growing up. Seeing them just run a business in all the different ways that that seeps into your everyday life as a kid. That's what we would talk about around the dinner table. And just knowing that now I really see my role as like a steward, making sure that I can hopefully keep the business healthy and sustainable. And then that extends to all of the people that we have here. I feel like 30 people is a really great size because I have a relationship with everybody that works here. And I feel like if you start to get beyond that number, it's just impossible to keep contact and know people on the same level. So that's something that's really important to me. But I know it's not the maybe, I don't know, more technical, like keeping this business as like profitable as possible all the time. But I feel like I come from a pretty nurturing and entrepreneurial spirit. So then, of course, just the idea of being a woman in print, it appeals to me just that anyone's thinking about that or paying attention to it.
Yeah, it's something that's achievable for
Mhm.
anyone. And it's for you, president of company, it's something that's very achievable for a woman to do. Now I have to ask, since our company is based in Philly, what was your grandfather's company in Philly? I'm curious.
I think it was called Jefferson Printing. And I'm sorry, Dad, if that's not the right name.
That's okay. It's a long time ago. It's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. But it's just interesting for us because the
Yeah.
alliance is headquartered in Philly. So I'm like, I
Mhm.
wonder what it is.
Yeah. Both my parents were born and raised in this town called Pittman, New Jersey. And I think it's like a 15-20 minute drive from Philadelphia.
Which is really cool. Printing is such embedded in Philadelphia too, with Ben Franklin and all of the stuff there. Very cool.
Yeah.
So now for you, you've had so many challenges to overcome, even just to get to this point. But even for you, that itch to become an entrepreneur was probably in the back of your mind, whether it was with printing or with something else.
Yes, certainly.
What was that moment that you finally realized that, no, I think print is really it, the thing that gives me my purpose?
Yeah, I would say that I definitely always, whether it was like even fully conscious or not, I always knew that I wanted to be really engaged and like passionate about whatever I was doing. And when I was younger, I think I was steered more by just my idealism. I was looking at local food because I felt like that people's access to food and food security and access to good and healthy food, that was like such a basic, important thing in my mind. And especially because I had two really small kids. And so you're thinking about every single forkful of food that you put into their mouths. But I think that definitely after going through that whole sort of, it was a long time. So it wasn't just one moment, but I started paying much more attention to the way that employees here talked about their experience and working for people like my mom and dad and what it meant to them to work for a company that they was run by people that they trusted, that they felt like did, things in the community that were really important. And I don't know, something just clicked where it was like printing in itself, I think, is fundamental and important for an engaged and educated society. And then knowing that all this work, the foundation of the company had already been done, and the idea that I could step in and honor that and keep it going and hopefully improve it and build something for everyone that works here and my kids and my nieces and nephews. Just that idea of, I guess, legacy and also improvement, like having something. This is a specific focal point where I can come every day and work on making it a little bit better every minute of every day. And that felt really, I don't know, it felt really, there's a release in that because it took away some of just my overall existential questions of like, how am I going to make an impact? I want to be doing something meaningful with my time. And yeah, in my story, I feel like it was almost like the path of least resistance for that. I found myself with that opportunity and just really grabbed a hold of it.
And it's interesting, printing in many cases, you have some companies that are huge, but the vast majority are small to mid-sized companies. And those companies have such an impact on the local communities that they reside in,
Yeah.
as they're involved in many cases with the local schools, the local businesses. They're drawing people to work for them from the local community. So, in a way, it does give back to the community in a really meaningful way, I think.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that I look forward to because we've been in business here for over 40 years. We're mostly business to business. There's a lot of people on the street that if you said like something about Alta, they may or may not have heard of us. But when you are working with across the board, we support a lot of environmental and conservation initiatives. We support the organizations working around the unhoused and the hungry and different independent small businesses that are more mission based and all those our requirements are really like, are you trying to invest and reinvest in our community and keep it a great place to be and live and also improve upon it and to be able to support these different organizations and their missions by for us at the shop is most of those places don't have much of a marketing budget, if at all. And so
Mhm.
any little to us, what's like a little project for them can just be this huge, meaningful thing. And so that is definitely is one of the more feel good aspects of the business because we can give something tangible that we know is helping.
Yeah, and you can see that it's helping. As those organizations, those mission-driven organizations continue to grow and continue to be able to provide those really needed services
Yeah,
that in a way that you were involved with as well.
exactly. Yeah.
So you are still giving back the same way you wanted to originally.
Yeah. It just, I would not have, it wasn't the obvious
Yeah.
route at that time. But I do, and I'm sure that my mom and dad are both a little amused by the fact that it was basically my main objective from probably the age of 6 until through teenagedom to what plans can I make to not have to be at the shop? Like I don't want to spend the weekend at the shop. I don't want to spend my summer at the shop. And now I'm here 50, 60 hours a week.
And you
Yeah.
choose to be there.
And I choose to be here.
I'm
And
sure
my
it
younger
definitely.
self would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your parents must be highly amused.
Yeah. I think they're really pleased and I think they're proud. And it's great to have them as a resource. I
Yeah.
have them to reach out to and just either vent or ask for guidance, or they're 15 minutes away or a phone call away. So that's really nice.
Especially if it's a longtime client that you're having a problem with that they brought on board.
Yes. Yeah. They have that whole history of
Yes.
institutional knowledge.
Oh, yeah, Bob does this, that, the other thing. That's normal for him. Yeah, I understand that. No
Right.
problem. Now, for you, it probably is really meaningful too. Your parents had to be really strong mentors for you growing up, being entrepreneurs, and also to have your mom in that position too, as a woman, being the head or in the C suite of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom is a powerhouse. And it's always interesting to me to think about them because my memory of my dad as a company was that it was his sort of vision and passion. He had more of a personal connection and he had skills in that craft. So it made sense. That's what he wanted to do. I think my mom really could have applied her skills to any number of things. But I feel like it's a testament to their like relationship, but also their working relationship. When it was the two of them together, they made a very just powerful, dynamic team, and they both had the work ethic that is required to do something like that. I remind myself a lot whenever I'm feeling stressed or like trying to tell myself that my job is hard. I was just actually telling my mom this yesterday. We had brunch together, and I was just remembering that she was a one woman show running the office and all the proofs and all the AR, AP stuff, managing production, and basically just bossing my dad around, reminding him of what different production tasks he needed to be getting done. And in the midst of that, she would be getting phone calls from four of us, like fighting at home, needing her to work out any little squabble we were having. And I was just, I have no idea how you have the patience and the ability to not just completely lose it. And that's seeing, I spent my life, my childhood watching her be a really attentive mother to four of
Mhm.
us and doing all of the stuff that requires and running a business, which was quickly growing for them. So her job was constantly changing and she was taking on more and more responsibility. So I definitely had her in a pedestal, but I had a really great model of not only how to do things, but seeing it firsthand. There's a way.
Oh, definitely. And it's crazy, like when you're talking about that, and now she was raising kids, running a family household. That's a full time job in and of itself.
Yeah.
And yet now is doing not one thing, but multiple jobs. I'm guessing like right now, you probably have multiple people in the roles that she was doing herself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. At least five.
Yeah,
And
it's
still
so
more.
hard.
If I really parsed it apart.
But it's crazy to see you. Yes, the business was starting out. So, yes, you do what you need to do to make it work. Yet she was still really present at home.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
How?
And one of the things, this is maybe going a little away from what you were just asking about, but it just occurred to me that just as far as women in this particular industry. We're also in the Southeast US, and that was a whole culture shift that she had to adjust to, moving from the Northeast down here. And then to pretty quickly get thrown into the industry. And she was telling me, like, some of our suppliers that we still use as a few of our main vendors today, the initial reason that, like, we started doing business with them was because when she would call to place a paper order or call an outside vendor for some finishing that they couldn't do in house, she had multiple people that were unwilling to do business with a woman. And I know that was the case.
No, it happened, right?
And that was within my lifetime.
Yeah.
But the idea of today picking up the phone to place an order or get a quote and have someone say, I'm sorry, like, when you can find a man to talk to, call us back. It's just unimaginable. I think it obviously was happening less and less over time, but she definitely faced that in the beginning.
It
And that
just
just the idea of it is very daunting.
it boggles my mind. But yeah, but it's within your history, it's within your memory of this happening with your mom.
Yeah.
The industry has come a long way from that, but I'm sure there are certain instances where that still happens.
We're a member of an industry peer group. And before I was in an ownership position, I was attending that same peer group for operations managers. And so I probably have been going to those meetings, which are a couple times a year, since around 2015, 2016. And maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I started going to the ownership group. And I'm one of 3 women out of 20 companies. And by far the youngest, like, I'm 43. I think everyone in the group has at least 10 or 15 years on me. You just realize, like, you have to get out of your own way because everyone, for example, in that group has been nothing but welcoming and encouraging. And I think they go beyond standard expectations or what you would have for a group like that. In that setting, that was really the biggest challenge. And I'm still working through it, just getting out of my own way, like feeling like I deserve to have a seat at that table and that I have experiences or ideas that are worth taking up space in the conversation.
And I think that's one of the hardest things for women in general. Part of it's probably a little bit imposter syndrome. A lot of women deal with. A lot of women have that lack of confidence as well that they have the worth to be at the table. I
Yeah.
don't know why. I'm not a psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something that I hear over and over. That's something a lot of us struggle with.
Yeah.
You're one of 3 women in a grouping of 20 plus people, companies. 10 years ago, that might have been 1 out of the 20 or 25
Yeah.
companies.
And I was going to say, myself and another woman, we are recent additions. It really was one woman in that group of 20 or 25 for I don't know how many years before we joined. And yeah, she definitely holds her own now. I'm sure that, she has talked about that too, that it was just a difficult sort of initiation to go through.
Yeah. And then for you to add on top being young as well, even though
Yeah.
you've had the background, you've had experiences, you have the knowledge, but proving it not only to yourself, but then you feel like you need to prove it to the rest of the room in that instance.
Yeah. And also this was interesting to me to realize, like, part of my sort of more immediate imposter syndrome was that I didn't know how to run a press.
Mhm.
I grew up with this, like you said, this family run business, and I can see why that is valuable, of course, but getting into this group, I remember early on saying, I don't even know how to run a press. Like, I shouldn't be running a printing company if I don't know how to run a press. And these other peers were saying, none of us know how to run a press anymore. Your dad is probably the only person has run a press in this group. Like, we're business people, we're management, and we're finance, and we're strategy, all these things. And once I came around to, okay, yes, I can do those things. And also, my dad was a big help because he basically came to me and said, I had no idea what I was doing in terms of running a business for most of my career. Like, I was a printer who happened to have a business.
The other way around.
Exactly. I made it so difficult on myself. I just thought the harder I worked, the better things would be. There's a lot of things that when you're focusing on the business itself and not just actually the operations, you can make a lot more headway.
Yeah. He did what he knew.
Exactly. Yeah.
He worked a press and he knew how to do that. He had a skill. I can make a business out of this. But it was all centered around that. But honestly, for folks that are just starting out now, that's probably the same thing that they're going to go through.
Yeah, for sure.
They know how to work whatever the press is, whether it's a wide format press, whether it's in apparel, whether it's in commercial. We know how to do the thing, that process. But then adding the whole business around it, that's sometimes a whole different skill set too.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously, the more knowledge you have of the production processes, like, definitely, I'm always trying to, when you're trying to make a system more efficient or improve a process, it really helps to understand what those processes are and like what it takes to do them. But again, I feel like because of our size, if I'm looking at something that I know we're having bottlenecks or we're having issues with, I can go to the back and talk to the operators like same day and start to investigate. That's a part of my job that I love because there's always more to learn. And now the technology in the industry is just changing so much so rapidly. You couldn't possibly keep up with all the new innovations that are out all the time. So just even trying to keep up and be aware of what tools might be out there, it's takes a lot of time.
Does. It does. That's in some ways sometimes a full-time job to figure out, do I have the right equipment in the right places with the right people handling it as well? And how can I make better use of my production capabilities and the people that I have working for me?
Yeah.
So all the things.
Yeah, which I think this is definitely a major generalization, but I think that women are wired to multitask and handle thinking about things from a lot of different perspectives. I do feel like even just in the sort of more conditioned gender roles that we grew up with in our society, there are skill sets within that that are really
Mhm.
applicable and helpful to doing this job. So,
Yes, I would definitely agree with the multitasking ability. Perfect example would be your mother.
yeah, she is.
All the things, and honestly, even for you, you're raising kids as well. Balancing work life, home life, the needs in both sides can sometimes be immediate. So how do you multitask? And I also find too, women, they have a problem that they're mulling over and it sits for a while, but then as they're working on something else, the answer comes. So their
Yeah,
brain is working on it in the background.
I know. I don't know if it's just because my own self awareness has expanded, but I feel like that as I've aged, that happens more and more. I don't know, it could be anything like doing making a recipe, or a lot of times I have realizations in the shower. I don't even think I'm consciously like trying to solve a problem. And then just in the other conversations or scenarios, something pops into your head and you're like, oh, I could apply that at work.
This would work here. It's like your subconscious just goes back to the file catalog and they're like going through, okay, I know we have an experience somewhere that we can relate. Where is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
And
pops out at the weirdest times.
I think some of these scenarios are, I'm sure they're applicable for a lot of different people. In our company and my role right now, there are definitely some things that I'm still handling today that I think would be beneficial for a lot of reasons for me to delegate to others or bring someone else on. I do all of the HR right now. Anything that comes up with an employee, whether it's has to do with the company or really just is personal that is impacting what's going on with them. I have a little love seat in my office, and everyone jokes, 'cause, "Oh, we're going in to talk to our therapist." You know, if people come in and sit and talk, but it eats up so much time. And I also feel like it's probably one of the most important things that I do, like for the company's benefit, because just making sure that our team feels safe and supported and secure is such a big benefit to be able to offer to
Yeah.
people that are working with you every day.
And the fact that they are willing to come in and have that conversation on the couch with you shows the trust that you've established
Yeah.
within all the people that are in your company.
Yeah. It's funny. I think I mentioned my sister has a private practice. My brother is a general contractor. He has his own business. And the three of us, when we're talking, wow, we used to think when we were a little bit younger, like we really should have gotten our MBAs. That's what we should have focused on in school. But my brother and I, especially, are like, we should have become therapists. That's such a huge part of our job.
When it comes down to, we manage people
Right.
and we work with people, but helping them manage, knowing why they do the things they do is certainly very helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially when you're dealing with clients too, as to why they say or do certain things that you have no idea why they're doing it. There's reasons for that in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, like you're saying, I've established myself this way, but I've definitely become that whenever there's any kind of emotional or disappointment with a customer or tension or communication issue, that comes to me still because I think because I have a pretty good track record.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time trying to develop that part of myself. That is where my passion lies, just with other people. And then how that extends to our customers, our workers, our vendors. My business heart is focused around those relationships.
Yeah. And I think the printing industry lends itself to that very well.
Yeah.
So I guess wrapping everything up in a little bow as we get to the end of this, my favorite question, I always leave it to the end. So, knowing what you know now, so your background, your history, all the things that you've learned and seen and experienced, if you were starting in the printing industry today, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, wow. I would say lean in because I think for me, the ways in which I've grown and progressed the most are when I've been able to set my doubts and my insecurities and fears aside and lean into you don't have to be an expert to do a good job. And the more you can be open to just expect some amount of support and engagement, if you expect that for yourself, I've been surprised at how much more resourced I actually am to face the various daily challenges that come across my desk.
And lots of things come across that desk every day.
Yeah. But yeah, I think especially with the perspective of being a woman in the industry, my real experience when I get outside of my own head is like people are happy and welcome my participation and my perspective, whatever it is that I have to offer in that moment, if I'm just willing to step up and demonstrate it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved our conversation. Thank you again for spending a little bit of time with me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me.